Hi and welcome back to Whole Home Revival. I'm so glad you're here. Join me for a day in the kitchen, in the basement, just doing some things around the house to get us ready for the upcoming week.
I do my grocery shopping mainly at Aldi. Started that a few years ago, and I do think it saves us quite a bit of money shopping at Aldi. I do go to Meijer for a few things, but that's maybe once a month. So I typically go to the grocery store on Saturday mornings because Giovanni does not like going at this time, and it just makes for an easier, quicker, more efficient trip to the grocery store if I go by myself. Something that helps me when I'm going to the grocery store is I always make a list ahead of time. And how I go about doing that is I always have a meal plan for the following week. I check my pantry and my fridge and freezer for what I need for those recipes, and then make a list, of course, for the needs. And when I make my grocery list, something that I started doing a few years ago, and it's been so helpful for me, it's so simple, is dividing the list into 4. And those 4 sections are pantry, produce, freezer/meat, and dairy. And then I go through those sections kind of chunk at a time when I'm in the store. They're kind of grouped together that way, and then I'm able to hit everything off the list in order. Thankfully, Julian is always willing to help put away groceries because it is a huge family job. We have a basement pantry storage, and I will show that to you later in the video, so more to come. And I would say at least 60 to 70% of the groceries I buy weekly stay in the basement until I need them refilled up on the first floor. And I'm only putting away about 30% of the groceries on the actual first floor. So I picked up these white tulips when I went out grocery shopping. They were only $8, and it just brought so much life to our home. It's interesting that when we are in, almost at the tail end of winter here in Ohio, it's first week of March, and we haven't seen life in so long. It's so uplifting for this simple bouquet of tulips. Just brought so much life to our home, and it made it beautiful, and it filled up my cup. It was well worth the $8. So those beautiful tulips landed on the dining room table. Does anyone else make a checklist every single day, even on the weekends? Yep, that's me, checking off my to-do list. Julian recently put some insulation around our door, and I was unable to use my wreath hanger, so I asked him to hang up a nail for me so I can add some beauty to our front door. I knew that this day was going to be a busy day for us. I went grocery shopping this Saturday morning, and then we had our niece's birthday party that afternoon. And so that morning, on Saturday, I pulled out a bag of pre-made frozen meatballs. This is something I enjoy doing because when you make meatballs, it's so easy just to double the batch. And then what I do is I put them on a cookie sheet like I would cookies that I'm going to freeze. Let them freeze on the cookie sheet maybe 12 to 20 hours, and then throw them in a Ziploc bag. Make sure you date them. And then when you have a busy day, you can pull those out in the morning and bake them that evening for dinner. And we love meatballs because it's so versatile. You can have a meatball sandwich. You could have spaghetti and meatballs. You could just have meatballs with some rice and a vegetable on the side. It's one of those things that my future self thanks me for because I thought ahead of time. We're turning to the theme of cultivating beauty. We'll be painting the living room and hallway this year. And when we do that, we will be updating that entry wall, taking down that artwork, replacing it with beadboard on the bottom and a pretty wallpaper on the upper, and then adding some hooks for guest coats and artwork. And I'm really excited.
Hi friends, welcome back to Whole Home Revival. We are in the basement today, organizing the pantry and putting down a new rug that I found on super clearance at Aldi. I hope you enjoyed the video.
I constantly have big ideas and dreams about things that Julian can make for me. And I did have a dream about having a nice large pantry shelf in the basement, but I never actually vocalized that dream because there are so many dreams that I share. So anyways, Julian surprised me last year in 2025 and built this huge, massive pantry shelf for me. So I can fit all of my overflow kitchen appliances. I can fit my bulk flour and sugar, all of my canned goods, my canning supplies, all of my canning jars, my bulk spices. Everything can go there, and it has been so helpful to keep organized, and it's not overflowing. With the shelves we used before, we now use for other things, but they were overflowing. And so this handy shelf here has made such a game changer in the basement storage. I've seen people ask questions about how do you keep your pantry up to date and not let food expire when you're preparing for emergencies, that they just have food go to waste. And my answer to that is I don't buy food that we're not going to eat. So I buy canned goods that I know that we will be using the canned goods. And when I buy new canned goods, I put those at the back of the line of that canned good. And the oldest comes out first, the newest is in the last. And that way it's constantly being used and we don't let things expire. Really, that's how you should start building your pantry, is buying things that you already eat. There's no sense of having a bunch of bulk emergency food, then you're spending a lot of money on that's going to go to waste when you don't have your bulk pantry created yet. So one of the shows I watch on YouTube pretty regularly is Farmhouse on Boone, and I was watching one of her older videos about her basement pantry actually the night before I went grocery shopping, and she talked about how she bought a rug for her pantry, and that no, we don't really need a rug in the basement for your pantry, but how it brings beauty, and that you spend time in that space, so why don't add beauty if you want to add beauty. And so I was at Aldi the very next morning getting our groceries, and they had one of these washable rugs left. I believe it's a 6x8. It's pretty large, washable. I think it was normally $70 and I bought it for $17. And it makes such a difference. I know it sounds silly, but it does cultivate beauty in a basement.
So right now I'm going to be making apple cider vinegar. I have a couple apples that are a little too soft, but I'm going to use them for making vinegar. It's a very simple recipe, and I don't purchase cider vinegar anymore because I can make it on my own. When you make an apple pie, you can use all of the cores and the skins and make your own vinegar that way. I use this book for the basic recipe for apple cider vinegar. It's called Fire Cider by Rosemary Gladstar. So all it is 1 pound of fruit scraps. I use apples, 1 cup of sugar, half a cup of unpasteurized raw apple cider vinegar or vinegar mother, and then you fill up the rest with filtered water, preferably non-chlorinated water.
I've been asked in the past by visitors why I have a photo framed on the windowsill of Julian with Giovanni in the background. I think it's 4 years old at this point. And that is because Julian's love language to show love is acts of service. And my love language that I most like to receive is words of affirmation. And so I have that up as a reminder to me that Julian is showing his love in all the ways that he best shows his love. And one of those is building me things. And that is why that is there. For days that I'm wondering why my cup is empty and I want to be filled up with words, I remember all the wonderful things he builds and makes for me and does for our family. You may also notice the line of note cards there hung on the wall, and those are full of Bible verses that I want to remember. And so when I'm at the sink doing dishes or prepping food, they're there for me to reference and a good reminder of God's Word. I'm 99% sure I have a video about making apple cider vinegar, so I'll link to that in the description box. But what I'm doing here is putting a barrier between the lid of the canning jar and the vinegar liquid in the actual jar. And so I'm using cheesecloth, but you could also use something like a coffee filter. Make sure to check the description box and it'll have that link to the video as well as to the fire cider book. I have another example of Julian's acts of service. I noticed that our neighbor put to the trash an old cast iron tub, and I immediately thought to myself, that would make such a beautiful garden bed. And I kind of threw the idea to Julian thinking he was just going to tell me no. And what do you know, him and our neighbor wheeled that baby down with a dolly up our driveway into our backyard. And I just felt so loved and so excited to make some beauty out of that bathtub this summer. It's now Sunday morning before church, and I am pulling out all the ingredients to make a chicken casserole. And this was the first time making this casserole. It's called $1 Million Chicken, and I'll make sure to put that in the description box, the recipe. And it was delicious. I liked it quite a bit. Julian thought it was just average, but he doesn't like a lot of cheesy things, so that kind of makes sense to me. Anyways, the night before, I decided to bake the chicken for the casserole to save me a step on Sunday morning, which was so helpful. Another way to thank future self is doing part of the prep the day before. And now I'm just assembling the casserole. That way when I get home from church, all I have to do is hit the oven and put it in, and it was ready 40 minutes later. So that's what I'm doing here. And I have to say, like, this makes me feel so much more relaxed when I'm at church. I love that I can try to honor the Sabbath. For me, it's important to not do as much housework, cleaning, cooking. I don't love going to the grocery store or going out to eat on Sundays. I like to honor it. So anyways, this was key to a restful rest of the day for me after church. This recipe had cream of chicken soup, cottage cheese, sour cream, melted butter with Ritz crackers for a topping. There was quite a bit of cheese products. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, so I'll make sure to link that recipe. But another suggestion for saving time and allowing yourself some relaxation on Sunday would be making a crock pot meal and getting that going Sunday morning before church, or like I had mentioned before with the meatballs, pulling those out, or something from the freezer, a pre-made freezer meal, and pulling that out and thawing it while you're at church, and then all you have to do is bake it. I like to fast on Sundays, and so I typically make a larger lunch like this on a Sunday, and then Julian eats leftovers that we had from Saturday's dinner, and I fast, and it just makes a lot of sense for us. Once our lunch was completely prepped and in the fridge, it's time to move on to packing my bag for church. I have mentioned before that we always pack a drink for Giovanni since we're there for both Sunday school and church service. Grab my Bible and my things and get ready to head out the door for church service and Sunday school. If you are in the market for a new Bible, I highly suggest the English Standard Version study Bible, and I purchased mine in large print since I am middle-aged and need large print. I also added Bible tabs to mine, which makes it so much easier when I'm studying. I can go directly to the book and make it much easier. I'll go ahead and link both of those in the description box. Let me know if you have any questions about resources for Bible study. I'd be happy to answer them. If you caught my video last month about baking while losing weight, I had mentioned that I'm trying to lose weight. It's been almost 3 months now that I've been intentional about it. In February, I made sure to do a workout 5 days a week for all 4 weeks, so I got in 20 workouts, and I also got in 11 fasts for the month. I was able to lose another 5 pounds, so I'm only now about 7 pounds away from my first initial goal weight. Things that have helped me is I stopped drinking sweet tea pretty much altogether. I no longer make it at home. I try not to eat any bread or pasta after lunch. I'm watching my portion sizes. The fasting helps. And Nourish Move Love has really been beneficial for me. The workouts are 20 to 30 minutes long, and she is such a confidence booster. I feel like an athlete, and I've never felt like an athlete in my entire life. So if you're feeling hopeless in that section of your life and you feel like it's never going to happen, I just suggest trying to find the thing that will work for you. I felt for so long that it was never going to work, and I'm so glad that I'm finally making some progress. I found this dresser over the weekend at Goodwill for $8, and I'm just so thrilled by the purchase. I love that it's real wood and it was made in America. Julian cleaned it up for me and got the hardware fixed, and it's great. You gonna get Dad? You should get Daddy.
Oh my God.
You could help him with the new dresser we got?
Oh wow. Pretty good, Bonnie. Let's line these puppies up here.
Thank you so much for joining me for another week here at Whole Home Revival. I'm so thankful for your support, your comments, and your views. Please subscribe to be alerted for future videos, and you can find me over on my blog at wholehomerevival.com or on Instagram at Whole Home Revival. Have a lovely day.